Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV and welcome to this. This is an update of some videos, a series of videos I made just over a year ago about Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. There'll be links in the description box as usual to those particular videos, so please do watch them if you're unfamiliar with this issue. But this whole thing concerns the culmination, or at least the latest development, in the process that's known as Megxit. That's M-E-G-X-I-T. Apparently is in the Oxford English Dictionary now. Megxit, of course, refers to the departure of Meghan Markle. Well, it's both of them actually, it's not just Meghan. I mean, Meghan is the one who appears to have had most of the blame for this, but it's not just her, of course, it's Harry. They're a couple, so maybe it's just saying this is to do with Meghan is a bit cynical, and I know some people take that position, and I'll be discussing a little bit of that in this film. But it's not just Meghan; it's both of them, of course. They are both equal partners in this manoeuvre. In the previous films in this series, I talk about what happened at the beginning of last year, where Harry and Meghan announced that they no longer wanted to be working members of the royal family. So they had what's known as the Sandringham Summit, where they got together with the Queen and Prince Charles and a few other people and discussed what they would do. And they agreed to a trial period of 12 months from the 21st of March last year. Well, that trial period ends, sorry, the 31st of March last year. That trial period ends on the 31st of March this year. And indeed, it appears that no one's been able to change their minds. On the 19th of February, just a couple of days ago actually, the palace reported that Harry and Meghan would indeed cease to be working members of the royal family on the 31st of March. That's the end of next month. So what's going to be different? Well, they are no longer going to be able to use the title His or Her Royal Highness. So no more Royal Highness. Meghan will simply be Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, rather than Her Royal Highness Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Prince Harry will be, he'll retain the word Prince. The word Prince Harry will still be there, because Prince is a different title. Prince is the birthright, because he is the son of the Crown Prince, who is Prince Charles. So he retains the title Prince, and always will. That's something they don't have it. However, they no longer have the sovereign grant, which is basically the money paid by the taxpayer to the royal family to support the royal family. They don't have that anymore. That's gone. There's a number of other things they're not going to be allowed to call themselves or do, things they're going to have to step down from, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes on. They originally set up a company. This was actually this was immediately when they made their announcement. I think it was just soon after. They set up something called Sussex Royal. Well, that apparently is not, that they can't actually have a company with that name. It's to do with trade descriptions, because if they're not going to be royal, they can't. I don't think they cannot use the term royal in it, and the name Sussex as well is dodgy, because it refers to the Duchy of Sussex. Again, if you're going to use it for a commercial enterprise, I think there's rules against that. So they've got a new company now. It's called Archewell, which is named after their son, Prince Archie. And they're now going to, apparently Meghan's having another baby. Meghan sadly suffered a miscarriage a few months ago, and there's some news stories about that. That's awful, that is. Whatever, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I really wouldn't. They now they're splitting their time between North America and the UK. Although they have a house in California now. They've moved into a place in California. I imagine it's quite an upmarket joint. I don't think she's living next. She and Harry and Meghan, are living next door to Gareth Davis. They've also got a little house on Vancouver Island, Canada. There was always a bit of there was always a kind of joke about them maybe moving to Canada and living there in Canada. I think they're going to mostly live in the States. I don't think, because Justin Trudeau, that horrible little squid who runs Canada, he's Fidel Castro's love child. He said some horrible things about them. I think they're going to move to California now. There was that meme going round, I don't know if you remember, of they were sitting there, sort of like sitting on a settee, and Harry's like in a string vest drinking Labatt's beer, and Meghan is smoking away. She got her hair in curlers. I don't know if you saw that meme. That was quite funny. It's just, that's just a kind of like it's just like a caricature of typical working class Canadians, and that's what they were made up to look like. Oh, there's all kinds of other things going on. You see, despite the fact they're not getting the sovereign grant, I mean, they're perfectly capable of earning their own living. I mean, they've managed all right so far. I mean, they've just signed apparently a £130 million deal with Netflix. There's going to be some kind of film about them coming out. There's also a book. I'll say more about the book in a minute. I've got me some notes here. No, I'm just going to a few notes. There's all kinds of fussing about. There's a lot of fuss at the moment about what Megxit is, because what it means, what they are doing, because this is unprecedented apparently in the history of the royal family. You see, the word some people use the word resigned. It's a bit too stay. The word abdicate doesn't count because Harry's not a monarch. It's not like with King Edward VIII when he abdicated. Because if you know from your history, it was in 1936 King Edward wanted to marry Wallis Simpson, who was an American divorcee, because she got divorced according to the rules of the royal family in those days. He couldn't marry her, which seems unfair when you consider that the rules were relaxed, because Charles, of course, married Camilla, didn't he? Who was also divorced. He was actually in love with her when he was forced to marry Diana. But of course, then King George VI became king, and then he died, and Queen Elizabeth became queen, and she still is today. Yes, honestly, these reptiles, they stick to their rules. I mean, it's like the thing about the reptile brain. There's no emotion. There's very little creativity. It's just stimulus response, which is what you get in with known species of reptiles, and also humanoid reptilians, which of course the royal family are. Harry sees not. I mean, I mentioned this in the background film. The thing about Harry is Harry and Meghan and their child are human. They're the only major royals who are human. Harry is the son of Diana, Princess of Wales, who's human. She was from the Stuart bloodline, which is not reptilian, and her lover, who was James Hewitt, was also human. And this comes up to the point that because he is this kind of Ben Sinister element about whether it was all a one-way thing. Is it possible that now he's no longer the spare to the heir? They want to get rid of him. Possibly he's being pushed out as well as wanting to leave. People see a lot of the royal watchers. I'll talk about it in a minute. They're saying, well, Harry's being dragged out by Meghan. This is where the term Megxit comes from. It's unfair, really, because it's saying this whole thing is Meghan's doing, when, as I said earlier, they're a couple. It's down to both of them. But is Harry perhaps under the influence of Meghan too much? Is he a bit henpecked? I'll come to that again in a minute as well. But I'll just tell you a few more details. Whatever they call it, the Queen is saddened. So she's saddened by their decision, but Harry and Meghan remain much loved members of the family. Actually, she's saying that as she's sharpening her axe, yes. Charles is apparently furious, which is... They use the word furious. I remember when Prince Edward quit the Royal Marines, this was long ago, Prince Philip was furious about this, because Edward, traditionally, I think it's because he was they split all the royal family members. The male royal family members have to do military service, and Edward was Royal Marines. I don't know if it's because of what he chose or whether it was chosen for him by his position. But he quit. He walked out on them, and apparently he went AWOL or something, and then they ended up kicking him out. If it had been any ordinary bloke, he'd have been over the wall, wouldn't he, in the old jail, what they call it, the glass house. He'd have been there. He'd have done a few months in there, then been kicked out unceremoniously. But well, anyway, Prince Philip was furious. Yes, the fury of the reptile is something to behold. Yes, it appears to be the only emotion they can feel is hatred and anger. They don't feel love. Yes, these are they're going to have to step down. They have a number of positions, and they won't have to step down from all of them, because not all of them are a direct result of their involvement with the royal family. For example, Harry and Meghan are patron of the London Marathon and the Invictus Games. They're going to be able to keep that. but they're not going to be allowed to be patron, because they have been patron of the Commonwealth Youth Games, which they can no longer be. They're a patron of some private organisations, Well Child, Walking with Wounded, which is a military charity which was set up by Harry, and Smart Works, I don't know what that is. That's Meghan alone. She's the patron of that. So yeah, I mean, they can. Those are independent of the royal family, so they can keep those. That's not a problem. But they are going to have to step down from all the other things they're involved in, such as Harry is going to have to resign as Captain General of the Royal Marines, the honorary air commandant of RAF Honington, Commodore in Chief of the Royal Navy Small Ships and Divers, the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. That's a big one. They're both patrons of that, and that's going to have to go. Patrons of the Royal National Theatre. Again, that word, the word royal, I mean, it shouldn't be used lightly. It's something that, if you use the word royal and it's not royal, then that's the Trade Descriptions Act. I learned about this when I was setting up my my publishing business for the books. You can't use those words. Yeah, there's also the Commonwealth universities. That's going to have to go as well, because again, it's association with the Commonwealth. Again, it's the royal. It's the Commonwealth is basically the Queen's dominions around the world. That's going to have to go too. They're going to keep. Apparently, there was some talk about them being kicked out of Frogmore Cottage. But it was renovated. You see, Harry's paid back the money, because originally, you see, it was servants' quarters. This is in Windsor Park. There's this lovely house called Frogmore Cottage where the servants, there used to be 5 flats for servants. Abdul Karim lived there, the famous Indian servant of Queen Victoria, who she ended up kind of adopting. There's a good film actually called The Queen and Abdul, which is worth seeing. Judi Dench does a great Queen Victoria, she really does. That was turned into that was renovated. Over £2.4 million was spent renovating that into a home for Harry and Meghan. But apparently there was talk of them keeping it but paying rent on it. They basically become private tenants of that particular building, which is probably about £600,000 a month or something. I don't know how much it is. But Harry apparently has paid back the £2.4 million it cost to renovate it, which could mean they're planning to re-renovate it. Maybe turn it back into servants' quarters, I don't know. It's still a bit unknown at the moment. Security arrangements are currently unclear, but they are employing a private security firm at the moment, Harry and Meghan. I imagine that they're going to need that, because I suppose they're going to become, what they're going to become is kind of celebrities. They're going to be they're not going to be like the royal family anymore, but they're going to be like the Hollywood stars. In fact, Meghan already was. I mean, Meghan already was a kind of celebrity. She was an actress. She'll probably go back to that, actually. She's already doing some voice. She's got some voice roles with Disney. Harry's getting involved in politics. Harry did a photo shoot with Joe Biden, which I was very dismayed at. He's getting very woke, as old Harry. He wanted the famous song "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot," the Negro spiritual, which has been adopted into the rugby song for England. He wanted that removed because it's racist. It's not actually racist. It's a beautiful song, I think, and was originally composed as a spiritual. As I said, it's a song about spirituality. But you know, the very fact that he even said that indicates he's swallowing a lot of this cultural Marxist nonsense, which is a real shame. And there's going to be a book written. This is where it gets. They've signed a deal for a biography. I can't remember what the title was, but it's not come out yet, and they've got a working title at the moment. But HarperCollins have commissioned a top biographer to do basically the story of their lives and their marriage and things like that. A lot of the very cynical royal watchers, like according to Taz and these various other people, it appears that it hasn't gone the way they thought it was. They were expecting Meghan to file for divorce, basically, sometime between last year and now, and she hasn't. And there was a mixture of people, like you said, the anti-Meghan royal watchers, like Murky Meghan, according to Taz, and the Megxit and the people like that. The anti-feminists, they were saying that's the same thing. What's his name? Sandman Megxit. Did the Happy Humble Hermit mention Meghan? I don't know. But I know Sandman Megxit was going on about her, saying how she was a gold digger and things like that. And of course that's always like a risk, isn't it? I mean, it's always going to be a problem that Harry and men like him have to face, and that men like me never have to face. Which is where I got one up on Harry. Yes, I don't have to worry about that. No woman is going to marry me for my money, yeah, or for my celebrity status or anything else like that. But the big news is that now is that on the 7th of March they're doing an interview. Apparently it's going to be live and unedited. I don't believe that. I think it's probably already been filmed and it's been edited. A no holds barred kind of tell-all, like the one Diana did just before she drove into that tunnel. You remember the Windsor Broodmare one? The one she did with Martin Bashir. They're going to do something similar with someone much more prestigious, Oprah Winfrey. This is what I mean when they're not going to have any trouble, I think, earning a living. Those two, they're going to be in the top US celebrity jet set world. I think that the fact that they've managed to get this interview with the most famous and successful and well-paid TV presenter in history, it says an awful lot about where they're going. The fact they've managed to hook an interview with the most prestigious interviewer imaginable, I think is very significant. They've done this interview. I think they've probably done this interview with Oprah, and it's going to be broadcast. Now this is the interesting thing. This is where, according to Taz, has just done a video about this. It's going to be broadcast on the 8th of March. Oh, no, it's going to be broadcast on the evening of the 7th of March. It's going to go live on TV US time, which is like sort of really late at night, British time. And then what's going to happen the following day, the 8th of March, is going to be, the newspapers are going to be screaming about it from the rooftops. Well, what else is happening on the 8th of March? It's Commonwealth Day. So that's when you have the big Commonwealth Church services, and the Queen, they all dress up in red and they go off to the Commonwealth Day services. And Meghan made a big fuss last year because she turned up wearing green, which is the wrong colour, and going around hugging everyone when they told her she wasn't supposed to, and things like that. And see, some people are really, really cynical about this, because I mean, it's probably true actually that they I'm not sure it's just Meghan. Maybe Harry had a hand in it too, but I don't know. A lot of people are putting the blame on Meghan, essentially that Meghan is a bad influence on Harry, and that she's the instigator of this. Hence Megxit, but it should be called Harexit or Megxit. You see, there's you see, the big Megxit announcement came last year. When it came last year was when it was on. They did a big press conference on the 20th of January last year. Well, that what happened to be Kate's birthday. Kate Middleton, Duchess of Cambridge, who is William's wife, and several royal watchers are saying that this is habitual of Meghan. She'll try and upstage all the other royals. She's fallen, so as a result she and Kate had a big bust up over that, because essentially Meghan did that to sabotage any publicity Kate was going to get. And then there was a big fuss about, because Camilla did this big talk on domestic violence, and Meghan announced, what was it Meghan announced? She did another, I can't remember what she announced, but she did something to upstage that as well. So when all the news cameras were preparing to point at Camilla, just like they were preparing to point at Kate, Meghan said, "Hey, I'm over here," and suddenly they go and they turn around and they're staring at her. And according to a lot of the royal watchers, the anti-Meghan royal watchers, that is basically what is kind of habitual. It's Meghan's habitual behaviour. She does this all the time. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. I don't know if that's fair or not. But yeah, there's this photo taken of her because she's pregnant again, and she announced it. She announced this second pregnancy because she had this miscarriage, unfortunately. Now she's pregnant again, and she did this. She made this announcement about her pregnancy at Princess Eugenie's wedding. So this was actually a couple of months ago. Princess Eugenie, Harry and William's cousin, got married, and again, big celebrity incident. Oh, wow, look, everyone, Princess Eugenie's getting married again. News cameras turn up. Meghan says, I'm pregnant again. They go, what? Over it, and Eugenie's there standing there going, yeah, what? And suddenly all the news people are buggered off. And it's easy I can understand why people are cynical about that, because it just seems too much of a coincidence. It really, really does. I do understand why people feel cynical about that, whether she's playing this. And, because she has experience with publicity. She was an actress. She was in this, she was in this TV show. I can't remember what it was. Not one that I ever watched. And she knows how to play these things. For example, there's this photo of her that's doing the rounds. It's become a bit of a popular icon. Of, you see, they're lying in the grass, and you see Meghan lying on her back, and she has a pregnancy show, and she's got a hand on this pregnancy show over her belly. She's got a head on Harry's lap. He's squatting on the grass, cross-legged. He's like got a book in his hand. And it's black and white, it's very arty, and it looks... Does he have the book? I can't remember if he has the book in his hand. Anyway, it's based on the film Notting Hill. Now, Notting Hill's quite a good film, actually. Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant. In the final scene of the film, the very final shot, you have William, the main male character, played by Hugh Grant, and he's sitting on a park bench, reading Captain Corelli's Mandolin, his famous popular book at the time, and Anna, Scott's character, she's lying. Anna Scott, her name is. Yeah, that's Julia Roberts' character. She's lying there with her head on his lap, and she's got a pregnancy show. And a lot of people are saying, Meghan simply based the whole thing on that. I've been going through these royal watchers according to Taz, Murky Meg, etc. Now there's something I've noticed about this. This royal commentary, which these people specialise in. I mean, according to Taz, it's according and number 2 and Taz, T-A-Z, is probably the biggest one on there. It's presented by a young woman who's very, very anti-Meghan. She, I think, sees Meghan basically as an avaricious gold digger who's simply... She's always said this, that she's marrying... She basically has sorted out this... She seduced and married Harry because he's like a very high status catch for her. And that she probably doesn't think much of him as a person. She's just simply marrying him for that reason. And Taz is, like I said, has this very cynical attitude towards Meghan. Possibly just. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. And there's others who are in the same ballpark, like Murky Meg, who's another one of them. Now, this is where it gets weird, because like this royal watching, these YouTube royal watching, it's, as far as I can tell, so from what I've seen so far, this is an exclusively female activity. All of them so far that I've seen are women, every single one of them, and they form little bands, they form little loyalties behind one person or the other within the royal family. So, for example, Murky Meg, and according to Taz, I assume the young woman who presents it, I assume her name is Taz. They're very anti-Meghan, and they don't hate Harry. I think they see him as weak, and that he's been essentially led along by some beautiful woman who's kind of like hypnotised him. And let's face it, that does happen, doesn't it, guys? It does happen. And that's. Basically, he's just weak and he's being used. Now, what happened is there's a group of royal watchers called the Sussex Squad. The Sussex Squad are, again, seems to be all women, mostly American, and they support Meghan. And what's happened is there's like an internet drama war going on between the two sides. And recently, Murky Meg was doxxed, and there was a lot of hate mail sent to her, death threats, things like that. And she's very worried because she's got 3 kids and stuff like that, and she had to call the police. And it's the usual internet drama thing, and to me this is the female equivalent of football hooliganism. I'm just as an aside, I get so tired of these eco-feminists who go, oh, women are all peaceful and oh, men are violent. You know, if only women ruled the world, there'd be no violence and war. And I thought, you fools, you fools. If women ruled the world would be an incredibly violent place. This idea that women are somehow these bastions of peace and justice is a load of eco-feminist crap. You know, women can be they can be violent as men in their own way. I mean, they sometimes literally. Have you seen women fighting? I mean, they're horrible. They tear each other's hair, scratch each other's eyes. They really try to hurt each other. Whereas men, usually a fight is just usually pushing around. And they also do these kind of snide and destructive things behind their back in this sort of cowardly. This cowardly sort of internet troll-like way, just like the internet trolls I've had to deal with. So yeah, if women ruled the world, there'd be violence everywhere. Women can be violent. Women can be as hateful and deceitful as men can, and I think they can be as violent as men can. And indeed, I think if this was true, if what they're saying is true, then no, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense at all. What's being done with these conflicts between the royal watchers is like football hooliganism. It's a female form of football hooliganism. It's the feminine version of having punch-ups in the football stands. It's horrible. I mean, if to send death threats to a woman with 3 kids to the point where she has to call the bloody police. And Taz gets hate mail as well. She sometimes talks about the hate mail she gets from the Sussex squad. I don't know what the rights and wrongs are of this whole thing. I don't know who's to blame. I mean, what I know about the family is about the royal family comes from people who, it comes from sources and goes into areas that none of the royal watchers would look at. For example, Harry has spoken several times over the past couple of years about his own mental health, and I feel for the guy. I really, really do. He's reached the time of life, I think, when he's old enough to realise that, you know, it's just, of course, if there's any weakness Harry has, it's probably he just has a weakness for a bit of eye candy, and we all do. Meghan is eye candy, and she came along and offered herself to him, and he accepted. I mean, all guys are like that, apart from gay men. If you're gay, then it's the same thing, though, isn't it? Just with other guys. It's the same feeling, though. We all have weaknesses in that area, and that's what Harry appears to have suffered from. And why should he be criticised for that? He's probably old enough now to realise, unlike younger guys than him, is that comes with a price. That I think he may be at the point where he realises that, you know, if you just chase eye candy unconditionally, you pay a heavy price for it. But for all we know, maybe Meghan really does love him. Meghan has been portrayed as this ruthless gold digger by the Megtowers, by the royal watchers. You know, but is she? Is she really like a really, really nice girl who has fallen in love? Maybe she's not a gold digger. She's having a second child now with Harry. She tried to have one before and lost it, sadly. She's now having another. Harry's, I mean, it's going to be even worse for him now, but it was, I think, earlier on when he left active military service, because Harry had an escape. The army, I think, gave him an escape, because, and that's what these things do. Work for a man is an important part of identity. If it is something like the army, which has a culture and a community associated with it, or even any other job that has associated with it a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, culture, community. I know that because that's what I had at the hospital. And these things are enormously important for men. They really are. And that, incidentally, I think is why you have this. There's an attempt generally across society to break that down. This is why what you have now, I was watching this thing about the modern day class structure and about how it's changed, and there's this thing called the precariat. Have you heard that word, the precariat? This refers to people in casual employment. That is, people who are working for agencies or working on short-term contracts or zero-hour contracts, and basically they get dropped and they move around continuously from job to job to job. They can be sacked or made redundant at any moment. They basically just get paid, go home, get paid, go home, come to work, things like that, where your job doesn't mean anything. It's just time out of your life to do something which is it seems to be more and more deliberately intended to be unpleasant and unenjoyable, where you don't have the chance to make relationships with your colleagues, you don't get the chance to build up communities in the workplace. Hardly anyone joins a trade union these days. Not the trade. To be honest, the trade union movement is pretty awful these days, as I found out, because I was a trade unionist for a short time. But Harry's lost that. Being kicked out of the army, he's lost that. Well, he's not kicked out, but he was on active service for a couple of years. He went to Afghanistan. That creates bonds with other men, which are very, very precious. And it's one of the things that I miss most about hospital portering. Harry now has he has his family, he has his wife and his child, but he doesn't have that outlet anymore, and that's difficult. I think I'm speculating about him now, but he has talked about his battle with depression and things like that, with anxiety, depression. He's talked about that openly, very bravely, I think. And as I said, look at his background. He is the human child of Diana and Hewitt. His mother was murdered in a staged road accident in Paris. It was awful. I mean, he was very young when that happened. I remember seeing him walking with Charles and William behind the gun carriage with Diana's coffin on at the wedding, at the funeral, the funeral of hers, and standing there thinking he's just like a robot. Apparently he was given instructions that he mustn't cry during that particular event. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but I think they're safe. I don't think any harm's going to come to them. I don't think that they could do to them what they did to Diana. It would look too. I don't think they could do it in a way which wouldn't make it look suspicious. I mean, it'd be worse than Epstein if anything happened to them. Whether it was a car crash, whether it was some crazed fan like Chapman, whatever it would be, to get rid of them wouldn't fit. I don't think the royal family get away with it, especially now in this post-2016 world where people generally are thinking in a more conspiratorial tone. It's interesting actually, because like the likes of me, we've been yelling in the wilderness for years about this sort of thing, and now we're almost becoming mainstream. As I've said before, people like us have passed the dinner table challenge. Not for everyone, of course, but I think you can now sit socially with people and discuss things like Epstein, like election fraud, like vaccines, like the UFOs from 2017, things like that. There's a distinct change and shift in culture, which we're probably only just beginning to see the effects of. But I think that enough of those effects are apparent now that if Meghan and Harry were to drive into a tunnel somewhere and not come out again, or come out in an ambulance or a hearse, it would probably do more harm than good for the royal family. I think the liability created by those two, especially seen as, of course, Harry's always been at risk being the Ben Sinister. It means Charles only had one legitimate heir. The spare, Harry, was not really the spare, but now, of course, William himself has now had 3 children, so Harry's not really needed anymore. It's possible that part of Megxit is him escaping from what could be. It could be the fact they'll get rid of him. I don't know. No more news on Prince Philip. At the time I'm recording this, there's been no update on Prince Philip's condition. Apparently he was in hospital. I think he had another water infection or something. I don't know. Sorry, just the screensaver's kicked in again. He's probably in there right now having another transfusion of children's blood. I don't know what's going to happen there, obviously. Taz did in one of her videos. Oh, she ended her last video actually, where she said, "Oh, wishing Prince Philip all the best." You know, she's very pro the Queen and Prince Philip, Taz. I'm obviously not. I'm not going to wish any harm on him, but at the same time, I don't give a damn what happens to Prince Philip. I really don't. Do you remember my video, Crash of the Lizard Prince? I'll put a link in the description box to that actually, because that was the time when he had that car accident. You know. So I mean, I wish Harry and Meghan all the best. I really do. I think they're humans in a reptilian world, and that can't be easy for them. I think they're safe. They're probably safe. I don't think there's any danger to them. But of course, possibly this is always inevitably going to happen. I mean, there's no way Harry can't possibly believe the official story of what happened to his mother. It's not possible. Surely not. Surely he knows what really happened. It must be some kind of open secret. And that's going to affect him. I mean, he must be angry. He must be angry with what's happened. Probably more angry than William. William, of course, had a human mother, but he's got that reptilian. Those reptilian genetics and that reptilian attitude he gets from Charles. Charles, it seems, can only be furious about things. Probably William can't. I don't know whether William's human side will come out and allow him to join Harry in exposing this, but so much else has been exposed in the last few years. I mean, surely maybe this is another thing that could be please exposed at some point soon. Thank you. Anyway, there'll be another video coming soon. I've got another reply video to do. And things like that, and of course we have now the supposed roadmap for leaving the lockdown, which I'll be covering maybe in a live stream coming up, so keep your eye on the channel. Thank you for watching Habitual TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.